Well, namaskar. Once again and welcome to all of you. This is Rupali Suri. I am the host and I welcome each and every one of you who are watching us. I think we have like millions of followers and millions of people who are watching us today. And yes, this is the third day of the summit. Ladies and gentlemen, in a very formal way again, let me tell you, welcome to the Thai Global Summit 2020 presented by Control S. Well, TIE was founded in 1992 by the group of successful entrepreneurs, corporate executives, senior professionals. Over the last 25 years of existence, TIE chapters around the world has become very vibrant platform for entrepreneurs, professional, industry leaders, investors, and of course, there are a lot of teachers who are ready to share their knowledge with you guys. This is a great platform of sharing. This is a great platform of learning. This is a great platform to make sure that you have acumened yourself well to further up your business and projects. It's a place where you can strategize yourself, and that is why we get so many acumen people here up on a platform like this. I'm so sorry. I'm always used to talking on stage, and this is like how pandemic has changed the entire concept, where it has got you on screen. Every time I am just thinking that I am on stage and I am with you guys talking and interacting with you. But I'm sure the audience is going to feel that live session in a very fruitful way, where you can unleash a lot of integrities and the nitty-gritties that is required to know and further their entrepreneurship. So, sir, I will now, just a minute, sir. Well, now it's time to actually talk about digital ecosystem approaches and opportunities. Yes, it is now time to discover the opportunities that you have in the digital world. I am also aloof a little bit about this because I come from an industry which is related to fashion, which is related to entertainment. Being here, listening to these experts widens up my knowledge. So we have with us Mr. Varde Pandey. Welcome to you on this summit, on this beautiful summit of exchanging and empowering knowledge. I am looking forward to the digital exploration that we have in this generation. Please enlighten us.
Thank you, Rupali. Namaskar, everyone. And thank you to TIE and the organizers for putting together this fabulous summit, which I believe is the largest entrepreneurship summit in the world. Wow.
Absolutely, it is. Absolutely. You have no idea. We have about 40,000 registration. We have like some 350 speakers. In fact, more speakers this point of time. We have some 500 plus one session. So we have so many people coming under this one roof, talking, exchanging their knowledge. I'm telling you, as somebody who's not, I'm from an entertainment industry, coming and being with you guys, it is enlightening me, it's empowering me and giving me so much knowledge. I think by the end of this 3-day session that I've had, you can ask me any question, I would know. I'm looking forward for your session.
Great.
Very easy.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rupali. So as Rupali said, I'm Varad Pandey. I'm a partner at Omidyar Network India. We are an investment firm focused on social impact. We invest in early stage startups as well as non-profits which are working on creating positive social impact in India. It's great to be at this session, and I'll take the opportunity to say a few words and introduce our speaker, Mr. Satyanarayana, who has been an inspiration to me and many others who are seeking to build India's digital future. I also wanted to broadly introduce the concept of open digital ecosystems, which really is a new way of thinking about the design of tech platforms for public good. For many of us today, our digital lives are as important as our physical lives. And this has been especially true in the year of COVID-19, of course, where majority of us have conducted our lives essentially digitally.
Absolutely.
Just as India has built physical infrastructure like highways and cities to support the growth of our economy and the needs of our population, we are now in an era where we are putting in place digital infrastructure, which will essentially be our digital highways. And the open digital ecosystem approach really is a way of thinking about India's digital infrastructure in a way that maximizes benefits and minimizes risks and harms. And we believe that moving from a world of siloed vertical systems to an ecosystem approach is really important here. And Mr. Satyanarayana will talk about that. The ODE approach, broadly speaking, we say has 3 layers. The first layer is what is the tech layer, which is really the digital platform. And the word platform, of course, is well understood. India is now coalescing around the shared understanding of the tech platforms They need to be modular, they need to be have open APIs, they need to be open source, interoperable, all of these terms that many of you in the tech industry would be familiar with. And in this, we are becoming a global leader, and we should be proud of it. India's platform builds like UPI, India Stack, they are really becoming the envy of the world. And Mr. Satyanarayana will talk about some of the other examples as well. But in addition to the tech layer, there are two other layers which we think are really important. And we call these the non-tech layer. One is, of course, governance, which is really about how will these platforms be managed and maintained? Who is responsible for maintaining this digital infrastructure? Government, private sector, PPP mechanisms. Who should own and operate them? How should economic value be distributed through these platforms? What is the recourse for users, consumers, and citizens when they have grievances? Just like we have speed limits for road safety in the physical world, we will need to tackle a lot of these issues, especially around use of data privacy, security in the digital world as well. So this is the second layer of ODEs, the governance layer. And then there's a third layer, which we call the community layer. And the community really is folks like you, entrepreneurs, who will build solutions on top of the digital platforms, and as well as end users of these solutions, who will thrive and benefit from the creation of these platforms. And entrepreneurs really play a very crucial role in realizing the full potential of these ecosystems. While the government can build the digital rails, it is entrepreneurs like you who ultimately build the business models and the solutions for consumers on top of this infrastructure. And there are plenty of examples. I'm sure some of you are in the room as well. Mr. Satyanarayana will enlighten us on some of the areas like the National Digital Health Mission, where there are very interesting approaches being promoted now to attract entrepreneurs around it. The key point for us is therefore that ODEs, or open digital ecosystems, have the potential to unleash transformative impact at scale, but they also pose challenges and risks that need to be addressed. And so an integrated way of thinking about all these three layers of ODEs, the tech platform, the governance, and the community, is very, very important. And this is where visionary thinkers like Mr. Satyanarayana, our speaker today, come in. They have already paved the way for India by putting in place many of the building blocks of our digital infrastructure. These keystones include foundational digital ID like Aadhaar, which has become a part and parcel of all our lives, the Digital India Mission, and the India Enterprise Architecture. In all of these, Mr. Satyanarayana has played a leadership role in his positions in the state as Secretary of METI and as Chairperson of UIDAI. He has continued to be a thought leader even after leaving government in shaping India's digital ecosystems as one of the chief architects of India's National Digital Health Blueprint, which has formed the basis for the National Digital Health Mission. And he's currently leading a very exciting working group where I'm privileged to sit with him on developing the agriculture digital ecosystem for India. As the chief advisor of the Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution of the World Economic Forum, he is also now guiding both the public and the private sector entities in helping further scale these population scale digital ecosystems. So without further ado, Satyanarayana Garu, I would love to invite you to make your remarks. You're on mute, sir.
Thank you, Varad, for that generous introduction. And let me just start by sharing a screen. Yeah, so thank you. And it's always a pleasure for me to be back with Ty and the largest virtual conference happening to 3 days. My contacts with Ty go back to 1999, almost 20 plus years now. I had been to your event several times in various capacities like Secretary IT in Government of Andhra Pradesh and later as Secretary to Government of India in Delhi. So I visited the Valley several times and participated in your events, and it's always a pleasure to come back and share some more thoughts. So next few minutes, I'll be just giving an overview of what is happening at the national level in India what big things are happening, and what are the opportunities arising out of these. So let me throw up a few trends as I see them. See, the government of India, especially various major ministries, there is a thrust on the public digital platforms and the ODE concept that Bharat just explained so nicely in the introduction. So that's one exciting thing that's happening. Then, secondly, the industry itself is shifting from a service oriented development to products and platform thinking as of now. That is the second major thing. And the third is progressive data regulatory frameworks are happening. If we just go ahead digital in a big way without the guardrails, as Varad was mentioning, so there is going to be a downside to it, and there may be unforeseen consequences. So we need to go in a cautious way, and for that, a number of regulatory frameworks are in the offing. So a combination of these three is really going to enable us to leapfrog to the next generation. Uh, Let me just talk a little bit about these concepts. First one is the what are the enablers? If you look at, we're talking about a digital economy, $1 trillion digital economy opportunity in front of us by 2025. So the first and foremost thing is being open and being digital. So open digital ecosystems, from systems to ecosystems. No longer at the national level we're thinking of systems, but thinking of ecosystems. So what are the ecosystems that are evolving? I've just got a one slide view of that. Importantly, on the top layer, you can see the digital ID, otherwise also called Aadhaar in India, with 1.27 Aadhaars having been issued already. And I had the privilege of being the chairman of this organization till last year. And we know the kind of difference it made in terms of several, cashless and presence-less transactions happening. Second one is, major one is digital payments through UPI and the entire ecosystem there. And as I'm talking again, there is a national digital health mission that's going on to build the health ecosystem, digital health ecosystem. It was announced by the Honorable Prime Minister. You are aware that the announcement came on 15th of August, our Independence Day last. So this is a kind of and I happen to be chief advisor to the National Health Authority in this area also. Then education, very interesting thing is happening. A very large ecosystem is building up, which is called NDR, National Digital Education Architecture, NDR, which is at an advanced stage of design, and the report is expected to come out by end of this month. And 2021 will see the implementation of these two also. Then in terms of health, we are doing it already, pilot implementation in 6 union territories. Since this is the first, it was the first to go. Then in the agri also, a project called IDEA, India Digital Ecosystem for Agriculture. So that is also at an advanced stage. And similar efforts in rural development called RIDEA, Rural Integrated Development Ecosystem Architecture, and employment and logistics as well. Just to give a nutshell, in a nutshell, the major initiatives going on in India at this point of time. So if you have the ecosystem laid out very clearly, then the progress becomes, with all its attendant standards and rules of engagement and so on, things become much more easier and manageable that way. And to kind of create an overall framework, we have come up with this India ecosystem architecture. The version 2.0 is being designed, and our target is by Jan we put it out. So this is connecting all the dots and creating the set of principles and standards required to be followed for such ecosystems. It's agnostic to any domain. It can be used in any domain. So it will also open up a lot more sectors from systems to ecosystem level. And the third point is the kind of governance frameworks about data, the progressive approach to data. One is the Personal Data Protection Bill, which is in front of the Parliament right now, and the committee report of experts on non-personal data. It was headed by Chris Gopalakrishnan, and it is also in the pipeline. And also a nice architecture, sleek and simple architecture called Data Empowerment and Protection Architecture. So how do we leverage the power of the data and at the same time protect the people who own that data? So this is trying to address some very interesting areas. So Deepa is also there on the, in the pipeline. So these are the emerging things, and a kind of a pictorial version of what Varad described earlier, the three-layer approach to open digital ecosystems. At the core is the digital platforms, and the layer of community, and finally a layer of governance. So since he has already explained it so eloquently, I'm not going to spend more time on this, but it is necessary for us to go in a structure. This is going to be kind of path breaking even for at a global level, I would say. Then just a few specific sectors. It is assessed that it will unleash or unlock about 700 billion US dollars worth of economic impact in various sectors, like in the health and talent and urban governance, agriculture, land justice, social justice, etc., and several other sectors. Let me just spend half a minute to give you a flavor of. See, the important thing is that this entire ecosystem, one very, very important component is the emerging technologies, the role that emerging technologies can play. We can make a whole lot of difference to that sector using emerging technologies like AI, ML. And incidentally, the World Economic Forum, for which I'm chief advisor, also at this point of time, has the C4IR, Center for Fourth Industrial Revolution. How do you use emerging technologies in a responsible way is the goal of this organization. And currently we are working in agriculture, healthcare space. Let me just give you a flavor of that. In agriculture, how do you manage precision agriculture? These concepts are all not new, but, not too old either, but somebody has to really work it out at scale in the country. So that's what we're trying to do here. Precision agriculture, value chain linkages, and also enhanced efficiencies in various sectors like credit and insurance and logistics and supply chains, traceability. All these are addressed here in this ecosystem approach using emerging technologies. A similar thing in the health sector, you can say that whether it is population health, whether it is individual health, whether it is health systems or pharma and medtech, lot of game changers can be introduced using emerging technologies. And this is a snapshot of the various things going on in this space also. So I would just mention that really we are at an exciting time, and not only for India but for the whole world. So the slogan going forward is solve for India, solve for the world. So because India has such a scale, almost like a global scale. So it's very optimistic, very positive at this point of time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. That was a great overview, and especially great to hear from you, since you've really built some of these building blocks and are continuing to spend your energy to take this work forward. I'll invite participants to share their questions, and the team can pass them on to me. In the meantime, I'll start with the first one, sir, which is that can you say a little bit more about how entrepreneurs can plug into some of these platforms today? Because I think we are speaking to my guess is that your presentation has inspired many of our audience today about the possibilities, but what is the practical way in which they can fit in and contribute?
Yeah, thank you, Varad, for that very insightful question. Actually, the idea is that the public sector alone cannot. There's a limit to what it can do in terms of adding value or making a huge difference, or innovation space. So idea is to how do you open it up? How do you unlock the potential in a appropriate manner? So it happens in several ways. One is creating the standards, interoperability standards for the and defining them in the for the ecosystem for each of these ecosystems. I've shown those globes, about 9 of them, yellow globes there in various sectors. What kind of ecosystems. So defining the rules of engagement itself is a great. As a government, don't do anything more. Just tell the contours of the architecture, specify the standards and how interoperability can happen, and then lay down the rules of the road or rules of engagement for various players to chip in, plug into the system, and then start giving their services is one way. The second important way is a sandbox environment where the entrepreneurs can just again have an environment where they can test out their solutions. For instance, ndhm sandbox.ndhm.gov.in. In the health sector example that I gave earlier, already the sandbox environment is live from about 4th week of August, and we have received close to about 400 entries into that sandbox. Almost 300 plus of them have been cleared also for actually building those the solutions. So 2 routes. One is to respond to your question specifically. 2 possible routes exist. One is basing on the ecosystem and the standards. Entrepreneurs can just go ahead and design their solutions, number 1. Number 2, they can also take advantage of the sandbox that is being created for each sector. So that way it will be. And then once it is cleared in the sandbox, they can just go into the market straight. And they will have no hassles in connecting up properly because the access to all the APIs is given through the sandbox environment.
Great. No, I just want to recognize that this is a real paradigm shift in the way things are being conceptualized. The idea of a sandbox where it's really an invitation to come and partner in a practical way. And I'd urge the audience to look at the website that was mentioned, sandbox.ndhm.gov.in. It explains in very, very clear terms how you can integrate your systems by partnering with NDHM's APIs. It also provides you a test environment for the consent manager, for various other tools that are being developed as part of the NDHM. It's really fascinating, I think, that approach which has been taken and the potential it has. And I think a similar approach will be taken in other spaces as well. There is another one I'd just like to call out for the benefit of the audience, which is the Reserve Bank of India, RBI, also launched a regulatory sandbox. Financial services, as you know, is a highly regulated area. So within the purview of the RBI, there is something called a RBI's regulatory sandbox. The first theme they've chosen is on retail payments. There's a process for which you can apply to be part of that. They're taking a cohort-based approach, and they have recently, I think in November, they have announced their first cohort focused on retail payments, and you'll find both on the RBI website and a lot of news coverage around the kind of solutions that are being tried out. Now, I think this whole approach of, as you said, reimagining the role of the central entity, often a government entity, to think of not thinking of themselves as a solution provider, but actually as an enabler and facilitator, and not just the language of it, but actually providing practical places like the sandbox or ndhm.gov.in, where you can come and integrate and try out whether it works for you, and then decide to proceed further, is very, very inspiring. So that's great to see. You're also working, sir, on the agriculture piece. Would you like to say a little bit more on how you are conceptualizing that, especially from the point of view of entrepreneurs?
Sure. In terms of the agriculture, we have what is called IDEA, which I mentioned briefly earlier, India Digital Ecosystem for Agriculture, where the idea again is to create a set of principles and standards and also the various ecosystem players identifying and defining their roles, and also putting in place a set of rules of engagement. So, and let the you know game go on afterwards. So, as you say, the role of the government will be minimal, so to say, and it will be more of an enabling role. Create the necessary enablers, put them in place, and the rest will be taken care of by the industry and the entrepreneurs, basically. So that's one thing that's happening. As I mentioned, because of some kind of distractions, would have got the report out by now, but pretty soon it will be. Then another major initiative we are doing from the forum side, the World Economic Forum. I'm doing two things at the same time. The previous one is for the government of India will come up with the idea, India Digital Ecosystem Architecture. On the forum side, we have a very interesting, exciting project called AI for AI. That means AI for agriculture innovation in collaboration with the government of Telangana and the Ministry of Agriculture, government of India. So the entire value chain of agriculture is being addressed. How can emerging technologies be used responsibly to make a huge difference in the crop planning stage, in the smart crop farming stage, and also in the post-harvest stage as such, and the data governance side. So we have 4 streams working currently. About 100 members from the industry and startup community are working with the forum to define all these rules of engagement and protocols. So it's an exciting thing happening on both fronts, the ecosystem front as well as the emerging technology front. Bharat.
Great. Is there a resource the audience can learn a little bit more about AI for AI? I don't know if there is, then you can share that with the group, because it certainly sounds like you're taking the most cutting edge technologies to a space where really it could benefit, given that nearly half our country's workforce is in agriculture and so on. But I think we all will eagerly look forward to that when you have that ready.
Yeah.
Great. The other question, just again, sort of some questions are coming in. One was just the regulatory environment is also evolving as a result of some of these ecosystem plays. You talked about it a little bit in your presentation around the personal data protection bill. There's also a committee which is developing the framework for non-personal data, which has submitted a draft report, and it's out in the public domain for comments and consultation. So lots of activity happening on the regulatory front. How should entrepreneurs view all of this, right? Because obviously, regulation is good, but sometimes regulatory overreach can also be a hindrance to entrepreneurs. How should they think about regulation of these platforms and so on?
Yeah, so there is, regulation is like a double-edged sword, I would say. That, it's required. It's not as if that you can do away with regulation as such. Some people, there was a time when, regulation was a avoidable thing. People are afraid of it. And, I wish I didn't have this regulation, I would have gone faster. But if you see the long haul, the vision we should be heading to, it is not deployment of technology, development of solutions, products is fine, platforms, etc. But at the same time, we have to see what is in the overall interest, long-term interest of the society. There should be also certain precautions and safeguards while doing this. So it's a responsibility in the design, development, and deployment of technologies. So I would say it's not an age-old thinking of regulation, but agile regulation, I would say.
Right.
And it's described more like developtory, regulation. Development plus regulatory environment we need to have. A combination of these two, hybrid of development on one side, regulation on the other side. Developtory is a new term that is being given. So we need not be worried that something will stop our work if you create a great idea. It's going to be supportive of that.
Great. I believe we'll very shortly, but I know you have a long-standing relationship with the TIE folks. Is there any final words you want to say to the entrepreneurs who are joining today?
Again, I want to thank Ty for inviting me, for this exciting event. And really, we are in great times. I have been watching it for almost 30 years. The evolution of the entire digital and technological journey of the world, and it's always exciting. Always there is something that's happening and exciting, and events like this really create more enthusiasm and more traction, so that we are all aligned in the same way of thinking and make a difference to the world.
Yeah, great. Thank you for your time and, as always, your generosity. I'll just end by putting two, for those whose curiosity has been piqued by this session, please do visit a website called opendigitalecosystems.net. That is opendigitalecosystems.net. It has a whole bunch of very useful resources on this approach, on the ecosystem approach that we discussed today. And both Mr. Satyanarayana and I will be happy to engage with any of you who want to go deeper on it. And also the other website which we mentioned earlier, which is sandbox.ndhm.gov.in, which is really the effort to integrate entrepreneurs with the National Digital Health Mission, the exciting new opportunity which has come live this year. So with those words, thank you everyone for having us. Namaskar, and over to you, Rupali.
Thank you and all the best.
You're on mute, I think. Rupali, you're on mute.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you, Satyanarayanji. Thank you so much. It was a wonderful session. Yes, the entire world is now going digital. I think we are, as I rightly said, that I'm so used to being on stage, and now doing everything in a digital platform makes me feel very different. But this is how life is right now. And yes, it has also made it very easier at the same time. And thank you for exploring the ideas and giving wonderful insights like what you just did. And the conversation was fantastic. Thank you, Mr. Pandey. You were excellent. I think the knowledge that you have, I think you can't beat that also. It's superb.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And all the best again.
Thank you so much. All the very best. And please take care of